Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Smith, and today I will be presenting my exploration project. During this project, I will be comparing the Middle Ages, um, comparing and contrasting the Middle Ages to the 21st century in America. Okay, so I'll begin off by talking about the work and education life during the medieval times in comparison and contrastion to the 21st century. Okay, so in medieval times, the women worked just as much as the men. They basically shared the same responsibility. So they worked in the lands and participated in agricultural activities where the men and boys, they were more so responsible for clearing the land, plowing, and caring for large animals. And the women were responsible for harvesting and preparing the crops. Now, I basically talked about men and the women separately, but they both participated in all activities. So where I said the women were responsible for harvesting and preparing the crops, the men did that as well. Um, and then in comparison to today's life in the 21st century, both genders carry the same responsibility. The men and the women work in today's society. Even though they may have a job that's completely separate, they still do the same thing. The responsibility is equally distributed between the genders in America. Okay, as we move on to how they lived. In the Middle Ages, most Europeans, they were considered peasants, and whether they were free or unfree, they lived in family groups in small villages that were a part of a manor. A manor is basically a small unit of like a certain organization. In this organization, they have like a church, they have different villages in it. It's like a small community. So each household that were a part of the manor, they consisted of one married couple, their children, and then maybe two other relatives like grandparents, aunts, uncles, or whatever the case may be. Um, in the 21st century in America, this basically remains the same. Most of our households, we typically have a married couple with children, and then outside family members can still be a thing. But for the most part, everyone lives kind of separate with their own immediate family. The growth of commercial interest. So in the Middle Ages, many people lived in villages, but the growth of businesses and building towns was on the rise. I believe this was like the turning point for them. A rise in the population began to occur along with like the crops and agriculture increasing abundantly, resulting in the adequate amount of food supply going up. And this basically allowed for the spread and trading of goods to occur. Um, During this expansion of trade is, like I said, was basically the turning point for the times because it allowed for people to have a new attitude toward businesses and making money. Okay, so now we move along to learning and culture. So the expansion of trade not only helped with the towns and the population, but it also brought on the expansion of learning, um, which resulted in like universities and better ways of learning. These new forms of architecture and literature came into play. The children were no longer forced to only study about medicine and law. They were able to study Roman law and theology if they had liked. So basically, they were able to expand their knowledge in different areas that they found interest in. They weren't, forced to stick in one thing and one thing only. In comparison to America and the way we study at universities, we're given so many options. And when you go to a university, they have so many different majors that you can look into, and they really allow you to narrow down what you find the most interesting and um, of course, what your pockets can afford. America focuses a lot on money, so as long as you're able to afford that university and you're able to pay the tuition for where you're going to school at, you're pretty much on the better side of being able to choose um, what you want to study and how you want to go about studying it. Okay, and so lastly, I have how did these people imagine their choices? I believe these people seen their choices as an evolving one. Um, to me, the Middle Age was a time where expansion happened the most. Once trading was discovered, you can just see that things were definitely on the rise after that and brought in a lot of new revenue, a lot of opportunities for people. And it definitely brought in the most growth, whether that had been through money or just through, like I said, opportunities. Um, yeah, I think that is all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening and watching my PowerPoint. That'll be all.